everyone. So we're here with Laura, and why don't we start with just telling us a little bit about yourself? So where you live, any details you're comfortable with sharing with the public.
Okay, great. I'm Laura Taylor. I am a psychotherapist. Sorry, I'm swatting flies away.
Yeah.
I'm a psychotherapist who specializes in trauma work with people. So I work with a lot of veterans and parents who've lost their children, and big stuff, not little stuff. You know, that's my specialty. I love it. And so actually I started doing that more so after my Joe work as well. But I'm a mother of 3 adult daughters. I have a 2.5-year-old grandson who I'm completely in love with. And that's sort of me in a nutshell.
You're in a nutshell.
I live in Cotati. I'm in the Santa Rosa, California area.
Awesome. And it's a beautiful day out today, right?
We are in beautiful wine country.
I know, I love it. So tell us a little bit about your journey in the last couple years. Just kind of a brief synopsis of where you were and where you are now and what kind of led you to sitting here with me right now.
Okay, so brief will be the challenge,
Yes.
but suffice to say that a very long abusive marriage ended. I was in relationship with a man who was emotionally abusive. He was a narcissist. Come to find out, there are a lot of us. But I didn't really know, even though I'm a psychotherapist, I didn't know what was happening. I kept thinking I needed to work on myself. So lo and behold, for 24.5 years, I was working on myself. When he left, it freed me up to feel the pain of all that I'd been caught in for many years, and did research and found out I had been in an abusive relationship. So I went on a healing journey. I knew I couldn't get the 24.5 years back, but I wanted to reclaim my life. I didn't want it to be stolen from me, and I wasn't willing to be a victim. So one of the things that I started to do was read some of Dr. Joe's stuff and to meditate. And then it was suggested by a man I was dating at the time that maybe we go to see Dr. Joe in Austin, Texas.
And had you meditated before?
I've been kind of anti-meditation.
Okay.
I'm a very high energy person. I always thought of exercise as sort of my meditation, which is true. I do get to a clear place when I'm exercising intensely, but I figured if it was difficult, maybe there was a reason it was difficult for me to sit still, and that maybe that was something I needed to explore. So I started doing little meditations, from YouTube. Then went to see Dr. Joe and sat in the weekend of 2015 in the spring in Austin, Texas, and had this incredible experience in my body, this experience of my body shaking, which thank goodness he told us it might, because I was just watching myself as I shook, and I could feel trauma shaking out of me. The man I was with at the time, put his hand on me. "Are you okay?" And I shoved it away. I said, "Please leave me alone. I was loving what was happening. I could tell it was good." And in the same moments that my body was shaking, I had this feeling of my mother, the spirit of my mother, who was an amazingly beautiful woman, behind me, like saying, finally, Laura." When she was alive, I had been in that marriage, and she had never seen me. She didn't know that I wasn't, she didn't, her body wasn't alive when I ended that. So I felt like there was this way that she was present with me and alongside me, supporting me. So after the Austin experience, I call it, I decided I needed to go to Joe's workshop in Cancun in that same year, 2015. And as soon as it came online, I went and signed up. I didn't want to miss it. And went there and, met beautiful, amazing people, and, of course, learned so much. And Joe, to me, I'm good at identifying people that are full of shit and ego-based, and I could tell that we were in good hands with Joe. So I let myself go into what he said, and I was completely present. And I'm someone who's not so much about, a lot of people tell me they've read this and that, and they know about this, and different spiritual beliefs and different rules and law. I just don't subscribe to that belief. I believe that my body and my spirit and my experience is enough. And so I just took in Joe's information, which was helpful for me. and then followed what he had us do. And the first 5-hour meditation that I did with his mandala basically on the wall and the sounds and the breathing, I just found myself in this place where I was no longer my body. And I felt my father's energy on the right. And, without words, there were messages that were sent back and forth. And my father had a very difficult relationship. And he said to me, are these details okay to share? Okay. He said, my job with you was really difficult. It was really hard. But I was there to help you learn.
Take your time.
And I got it. I really got it. And my mom, of course, we'd had a very close relationship, but her energy was radiating. And then there were all these other beings, and I don't know, I've never read about this, but I knew this was my soul pod. That's what I call them. I don't even know if that's what you're supposed to call them. And there were panels that had reviews. There were reviews of my life, I've had a lot of trauma, and these traumas were played like on a big flat screen, and somehow in the playing of them I was reviewing my life, the most difficult things, and all of a sudden I understood that each of these difficult things had been intentioned for me to come back to myself, to remember who I am, not to hurt me or to keep me trapped. I don't believe in being a victim. I never have. Never. And I've had I'm not going to even go into all the traumas, but I understood instantaneously. And I knew that these beings were my people, that we were connected to something greater, but that these were ones that was like we had a contract. That's what it felt like to me. Like, okay, we're your people and we've been with you and we're going to be with you before and we're just here reminding you. And I just kept feeling like this buoyancy. And when it was done, I felt myself drop back into my body. And I started crying. I mean, it was just incredible. And I think it was a little bit longer before the meditation was over. But I have to say that was a point in my life that I've never come back from in ways that made me small. I hear a lot of people talk about having to meditate regularly and stuff. And I have to be honest. I feel like I'm this far sometimes from that space. I can get there pretty quickly. I trust my deeper knowledge, and I trust that connection to something greater. I know it. I don't wonder it. I don't believe it. I know it.
And don't you feel like the more you listen to that, the more easier it is for it to come through you?
Yes. And that's why I say, to me, life is an active meditation. I used to think it was when I was just at the gym, but it's all the time. It's when I'm miffed about something, when someone stops quickly in the car and I want to flip them off and I get mad, and then I go, whoa, wait, that's not remembering the connection. And I breathe and I come back and then I go, okay. I remember very quickly. When I'm very much an extrovert and had a family and a full house, and I'm by myself now, and when I feel lonely for a second, I remember I'm not alone. And so from this sort of knowing this path that came before my workshops with Joe and my meditations with him, knowing that I wanted to keep growing and healing, that was a part of it. And then that reinforced, okay, so now there's more to do after this. And I realized my body had trauma loops that were in it. And so I started to seek out different modalities to deal with the body part that could be at odds with the spiritual, emotional part. And so
And what does that mean? You mentioned you had some things physically going on?
Yeah, I was on thyroid medication. I'd had issues with depression and anxiety. I'd had panic attacks for many years. And I knew that after that with Joe, I knew I didn't have to anymore. I just knew it. And it wasn't from what he said. It helped that he said it, but it was something I knew. So I started doing tapping psychotherapy to help with those loops. I went to a woman, her name's Dawn Dolan. I call her the sort of witch in our community in Katati. She helped me with supplements that got me away from the PTSD symptoms in my body in addition to the tapping. They kind of worked as a team. And then she said, you don't need to be on thyroid medicine anymore. And I said, I've been on it for 35 years. What do you mean? She said, I think we've rebooted your pituitary. Just go off it this weekend. Here's my number. Call me if you need to. I went off thyroid medication now 2 years ago.
Wow.
I'm thinner and happier, and my mind is clearer than it was on the medication. By the way, my ex, who's not a very nice man, is a pharmacist and told me, "You can't do that." I said, "Well,
I've heard that before.
yeah, so I'm sorry you don't think I can, but I've done it and I'm not on it anymore." So I was on Wellbutrin, I was on levothyroxine and Cytomel, I was on Zoloft. I'm on love. Along with that, I had to renegotiate things with my little girl who I'd neglected for a really long time. And so I found ways to pay attention to her because I knew she was speaking in my body, and I knew that I had neglected her. I'd followed sort of the path of others in my imprinting inside, that I didn't listen to her. That's how I ended up in an abusive relationship. And I started to create a relationship with that part of myself. People call it, your inner child, and they dismiss it. It's a very alive part of oneself.
And don't you think that's kind of the journey on this path is to reconnect and become more like, have that little girl or little boy in you be able to come out?
Yes, and that's what I'm still working on. I experiment with it all the time. I now let myself laugh out loud in the middle of a quiet place and have people look at me and still keep smiling and laughing. Yeah, and I'm still working on that. And I believe, there are I'm not really a Bible person. No disrespect for those who find that as a way. But, I remember as a kid, an Episcopalian kid, hearing things like, you go to the gates of heaven through the heart of a child or something. And I remember something like that. And I remember it stuck with me. I was like, what the hell does that mean? I get it. My childlike, joyful, trusting, open-hearted part is what connects me to something greater.
So what is one piece of advice you would give to somebody, let's say, who was in your position, emotionally abusive relationship, on, maybe antidepressants, as you were?
Mm-hmm.
What is one thing that you could tell them that they could apply to their own life?
So what I want to tell you is there are answers that you don't even know exist. And that was what I did. I knew that I wanted more than what I would say traditional Western medicine would offer me. And so what I did was I started to, when I would get really scared, not knowing what it was going to be, what the answer was going to be, how I was going to find these solutions that I didn't even know what they were, I would just sort of lean into trusting that there was a bigger picture than I could imagine. And one of my meditative sayings, prayers is, universe, show me what I can't yet even imagine. Bring me into the bigness, the vastness of what is possible, because my human mind cannot even begin to imagine that, and I know it, and I can thank Joe for that. So I think leaning into the fear, not closing up in your heart in the fear, knowing that fear can also be what comes before excitement, and trusting that there's something more than you can even imagine. My God, if I could never have imagined the joy and peace and happiness that I feel relative to what I felt 5 years ago, I couldn't have imagined this. So that's what I want you to imagine, that there's a life you can't even imagine, and just keep moving toward it. I promise you it gets better.
What a beautiful answer. So my very last question, which we've kind of covered a little bit, but I always save it for last. My motto is love over fear. I try to live that every single day and every moment. So I love to hear what that means to other people. So when you hear love over fear, what does that mean to you in your own life?
Fear is a construct. Love is all that there really is. Love is all of it. The fear is my ego. It's thoughts, it's worries, it's everything but the love. That's how I interpret it. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
Awesome.
I love it.
I say love is the answer.
Love is definitely the answer. That is beautiful. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.